What's up,
What's up,
internets?
internets?
Welcome to Same-ish Different Day, a royal mess
Rumble.
of a creative spew of ideas. Sure, this week, Raza wanted to title the podcast
No, I
Long,
didn't. Don't lie to them.
Long Live My Queen, Nicki Minaj. But in all
Okay.
seriousness, we're talking about the
Rap.
passing of Her Majesty. The passing of Her Majesty, not that part. Definitely not that part of Her Majesty's life. And what Canada should do, slash other Commonwealth countries should do about this. Because I know if you're an American listening to this or someone in a country that has no relation, you may not totally get the vibe. But
Only
here we
America.
literally, only America. You're
I'm
the
pretty sure
only
it is.
isolated one. No, there's got to be. We got some Russians listening to the show. We got some Belgians listening to the show. Shout out to you
A
guys.
Russian. This is my arrogancy playing out now. But was Russia ever colonized by Britain?
No, no,
No.
but it has a long, complicated history. It's like messy because they got mixed up in all that 1800s drama where everybody's
Oh.
cousin married everybody's cousin. So like by the time there's
Oh.
like Queen
Yeah.
whatever, she's half this and half that, and
Yeah. The queen, this latest model queen, has the her lineage is linked back to some Russian
yeah,
royalty. Yeah,
yeah,
which is not
exactly.
it's not conspiracy. It's not conspiracy. It's actual. Google it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a known fact.
It's leftovers from those days because that shit was happening up until the 1800s, like right before World War One was a brewing. Like as the colonial age was ending, was when that stopped.
Yeah,
But just as
those
those
are
families intermarried, since the queen is now on her final boss battle, taking down God, and her issues are with the big guy and not us peasants, should the world move on? More importantly, should Commonwealth countries like Canada consider moving on since we are half in bed with the monarchy still? When we consider this topic today, we want to ask the hard questions. Like, should we move to put Carly Rae Jepsen on our $20 bills? And should we remove the Governor General to have Governor Wine Raza,
I
here,
first of
here.
all, I would like to know how a wine mom would rule. Uh, every Monday, like you know how like tea time
Yeah.
noon. Every like hour on Monday is like Mac Miller hour. Like every other hour is like Mac Miller hour. So we have to do a moment. Why, mom? This is a joke. Don't fucking put me to the cross. But like we have to do a moment of silence every other hour for Mac Miller, and then no, but
Peasants, we're
uh
peasants. Why should the
Pez.
peasants care?
So we shouldn't, but for some reason we do because it's like the monarchy hasn't had any real influence. I assume right after World War II, right? Because as soon as the British Empire started to crack, as soon as they started, like, I think according to us, like South Asian people, we do believe that once they lost India, they lost. That was the biggest L that they took. It couldn't really recover since India was considered the jewel of the empire. So after that, the whole world should have been like, you should have do what America does, and told them to like, we're our own country. We should have our own thing. But for some reason, Canada, we like to half measure stuff. We half measure our gun laws, measure our healthcare, measure our marijuana laws, and we also have to do a half measure on this, where we have a Canadian Charter of Rights, which was created by our current PM's dad. So nepotism doesn't exist in Canada,
No.
but that was a big deal. My dad thinks Elliott Trudeau was a man's man. He loves him. So he thinks he's like a rock star because of
Mhm.
him creating the Canadian Charter of Rights, which is cool because it gave Trudeau was like the one of the people that said Canada is Canada. we don't need this. But at the same time, he created our charter of rights, and I'm not too familiar with that history there, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. But I think somehow we kept our governor general, which for our non-Canadian listeners and viewers out there, the Canadian governor general is the Queen's representative to Canada. He or she has the final say of what happens in Canada. Saying that out loud sounds kind of stupid, because why does a person all the way across the pond have any say in another country? That's
The governor general is usually a Canadian, first off.
yes.
But the governor general is supposed to represent a check and a balance because we were a colonial republic. So the governor general, as we were setting up our democracy, is supposed to be the one that then we pass a law, and then they have to say, yeah, the Queen approves. The Queen likes this one.
Yeah.
Or
This is
not.
in the year 2017, by the way.
Yeah. So they can
yeah.
they can have interesting loopholes because of it, but overall it's a very old process. Now, sorry, continue.
And it's our tax dollars going towards a certain, like a head of state that really doesn't hold this, like, what's the point, like a typical, like, in my whole thing is, what's the point of having a prime minister if the governor general or can override the prime minister's, like, say? In the States, it's a Supreme Court, which, this is ironic. This is super ironic that I'm saying this, but that's how it should be. If you're gonna, I'm not for that system, but for the layman Canadian out there, you have a supreme, like a justice system overseeing the
just the federal government
the federal
is the
level.
easiest
Well,
way.
you have the legislation level looking over the federal level, and vice versa. Here, for some reason, there's that, but then there's that ultimate, like that Metal War Greymon type beat of of ruler in Canada. So, like, it sort of, like, defeats the purpose of us having a prime minister, because I don't what can the prime minister do if the queen says no, right? And it doesn't have any impact
I guess because we're still supposed to be an independent nation per se, right? Like, it's not like the Queen has intervened in any decision making process. Like, like the last time the Governor General intervened was a long ass time ago. Like, it very rarely happens, right? So it's also like, you've got a point, but to play the other side, it's also like maybe a check and balance more so.
Sure, I agree, right? But as you just said, the last time the Governor General was actually used was many years ago, right? And now we don't. It's just barely, like, I assume we don't ask them for like, help often, right? Because we don't need to. So sure, you can have that check and balance, but not a Governor General. Somebody that's check and balancing the Canadian government, by the Canadian government, for the Canadian government, not some 96-year-old woman across the ocean.
So the current Governor General is Mary Simone, and they are an Inuit person who was born and raised in Canada.
Yes. I mean,
So
that's
how
great.
are they not Canadian and not, like, part of
it's
the
like the Governor
existing
General.
structure?
You don't need the Governor General. Just remove that and call it something else, and then say it's for. It has nothing to do with the Queen, and it has different powers than the Governor General. It isn't like it isn't the last one on the hierarchy. It's somewhere down below, right? Because then Prime Minister has to be the Prime Minister, right?
Yeah, but so we're sitting here in Canada with just then a Supreme Court that's another place that, like, you can very easily corrupt the decision-making process, like you're seeing within the States happening a lot with Congress.
We're Canada.
So
We're perfect, so that doesn't happen here.
it's
What are you talking
like
about?
the having the governor general there is also kind of not a horrible idea in case you get some wild ass dictator, since you can have an unlimited term here.
Well,
It's
then
nice to know that there's
does it
someone
have to be
above
associated
them.
to? Then why does it have to be associated to the Queen?
That I
Why
would
can't it
agree
be
with
just
then. Just
why
have a governor general.
just have a governor general? That's my whole argument. What you're saying is, I accept. It's great that we have it, but it shouldn't be at that level, right? And it shouldn't be like for somebody to it's basically a representative,
Yeah.
right? Why don't you just be a representative for the governor general? Be a representative. Bailey, a bright idea. The governor general should represent the Canadian government for the Canadian people. Oh,
What? We add more democracy to our democracy to make it more democratic?
democracy, yeah. But see, I'm against that shit, as you probably know. But because it's like, because Canadians don't really understand that sort of like with all due respect, Canadians, we think we're free, but I think we're like still like, actually no, I'm not going to go on a total tangent, but it's I think in a in Canada this sort of thing is needed, and as much as we like to call ourselves a democracy, the governor general kind of like put like sort of adds weight to, or takes a little weight off of the word
Yeah.
democracy for us, because it's not, again, who appoints the governor general? The Queen, right?
Yeah, but that's why I say it's often like a common misinterpretation of how people also label politics based on their like elementary school education, right? Like there's republics, there's different things underneath that. It's not just democracy is democracy, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not as big a brush as society seems to think it is too.
But that's how we want to paint it though, because if we say, "Oh, we are a republic," everybody's gonna be like, "What the fuck is that?" Right? Nobody knows exactly what outside of people like me, who
Big
has like went to
brain, big
school
brain
for
Raza.
a big paper. I have a political science degree, so go suck my $20,000. No, I'm not kidding. I paid to my pocket, but we Canada isn't really a democracy. We're more like a republic to a degree, I think,
Yeah.
because we don't really have the same things as a democracy has. Because the governor general kind of like says we are a republic because how that is in place. But other than that, there is free elections. We have all that, but we aren't like the states. I believe the states are also a republic too. I could be wrong about that, but it's like a different variation.
They're considered a Western liberal democracy, if I am correct. And we are a democratic republic, technically.
Um, we're also, Canada can be considered a welfare state too, because of our social programs. We have a lot more. I just realized that any country, I believe, from my research, but any country that has a lot of social programs, who actually has
Yeah.
benefits for the population, is considered a wealth. It doesn't mean we're a poor country. It means we have a lot of social. We're not a social, like, we're like a Diet Coke social democracy.
Yeah.
That's the
And
easiest
so
way
that's a
to put it.
republic believes in common welfare and borrows that socialist practice.
Yes. But don't say that word, baby, because if they say that word, then that's gonna be like, wait a second, what?
Well,
We're
that's why
socialism
it's
now?
like the American politics are so flipped. Everyone's forgotten all this shit, right? Like they call themselves the Republicans and the Democrats, and no one remembers what those fucking
Democrats,
mean.
yeah, and how both parties are different now.
Yeah.
Uh, the
That's a fun
Republican
fact if we
Party.
got the younger listeners. Yeah, go off, Raza.
The Republican Party used to be the woke party of America, and I'm pretty sure they were anti-slavery.
Yeah,
Pretty
yeah,
sure
they led that. The Democrats
they
wanted to
led
own
that.
the slaves.
Isn't it weird? Isn't it
Yeah,
weird, Bailey? Isn't it
yeah.
really weird? I found that out like 10 years ago. I was like, wait a second, Obama is the president. What the fuck? Does he
I
know?
I got really
What was he thinking?
confused in my first year of university reading about the American Civil War. That's when I was figured that one out.
Yeah, the American Civil War is like the most like messiest time period. Well, because of the war, obviously, but it's one of the messiest time periods politically because like it was a weird transition. Republicans were becoming Democrats, and Democrats were becoming or Republicans. So everybody was like sort of like, oh, I can't say this, but I like the way of life we're on right now. I want to switch to that side, which continues that way of life, and that was the Democrats, which is ironic. So like when you see conservatives online saying, "Oh, the Democrats were the ones who were like this," it's like they're not off base with that because they're like, "Oh, that was true."
Yeah, I find it highlights how young our countries are, Canada and the United States. It's kind of terrifying how big we are and that we've been able to hold all this stuff together for so long with such differing opinions. And then I say that to tie it back to the topic is, do you think a lot of people would argue that part of that reason we don't have the social divides as say they do in the United States are because we have that unifying attachment of the love of Her Majesty the Queen to hold us together as a
I don't
nation?
know. That's actually a weird. I do think Canadians are more put together than Americans, but I
Yeah.
don't know if the glue is the queen. I
Because
don't.
it's not, because then even if I join the army, I'm not just joining the Marines, I'm joining the Royal Canadian Armed Forces, motherfucker. Like, I'm fighting for the Queen.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I don't. I'm really think.
You
What's
know?
joke? Our highway is the QEW, which is so
Yeah.
funny.
The Queen's
It's so,
Expressway. We have so
like,
much shit in our life. Like, I passed a street that was just Prince Wales Boulevard. I was like, why does no
mhm.
one think this shit is weird? Why are we naming our streets this stuff?
Like I totally get it in the UK. They have a hard on for their irrelevant monarchy. That's fine. Name your streets to your heart's content. But for why do we have Princess Wales Hotel in Niagara on the Lake? You know why do we have a Victoria Day? That's a big one, right? Like, why do we have these things? We don't need them. But I think, I don't know. I think what binds us together, in my opinion, is that Canadians love to are super prideful of being Canada in spite of America. That's what I think. I don't. I think the Queen is like. I don't think unless you're like older
Yeah.
Canadians, and yeah, but generally speaking, the younger ones, I think we're like, oh, we're Canadians, we're more put together, we have universal healthcare, we don't have guns, we're better uh, than Americans, and then all of a sudden we find so many um graves of residents school kids, and then we're like, oh, well, we're still better than Canada. But so I don't know
So
if it's the Queen. I think it's our pridefulness of being Canadian. That's what binds us. That's what I think. But that's what I think anybody could be saying anything.
Hmm. I think that is a hopeful approach. I think the Queen definitely previously was that. I think it was a big part of it
Yeah,
that
because
inspired
during
pride in leadership, you know?
yeah because of like during World War II, for example, and even now, I guess. But like when you went to war, you were fighting for king, country, and the Queen, I guess. And this is for us.
Yeah.
And so like I think when because like for the longest time, man has always worshipped something, and whether it was God
Exactly.
or people, we feel some sort of prideful when we worship or like look up to like a higher entity. That's that people.
And you know exactly what the Elizabeth who came before this one specialized in?
What?
Ratifying and controlling religion within the British state. So that as
Oh,
religion
really?
was spreading between Protestants and Catholics, the first Elizabeth made it so that
Oh, I know that.
she, the queen, can decree what is the official religion of all of the domain. Because previously, then you would have
So,
fights between the Catholics and the Protestants and all of that. But then when the Queen stepped in and said, "Fuck the Pope," it's my law, it's my religion, I
what
choose.
happens? What happens if they go to like a place where they're not even Christians or like for example Muslims, right? Would they be like, oh, this is now Jesus land now? Like, wait, what?
Yeah, well,
Is
yeah,
that how it works?
that's why the Irish and Welsh don't like the English. You know what I mean?
Dude, think about the Irish people. Irish, I've never seen them. Like, I fuck with Irish people. They're like so. They're like
Based.
they're the most liberal people out there, but with the least liberal government, which is so funny. And they're and they're like pro-Palestinian, which is so tight too. But they're like, um, when that happened, everybody was saying, "Oh, drink, cheers to that. I'll cheers to that and stuff." It's like that's like the Irish people. Like I do think they deserve independence, low key, high key, and stuff. And this is a good time for them to get
I
their
also think the
independence.
Scottish people do. To be
The
fair, I'm
Scottish people
just gonna
do
hop on that. Say
absolutely.
that. Just
The
gonna hop
Scottish
on that.
people. Do you want jokes? This is how bad the UK is. This when Brexit was happening, but when that was happening, Scotland said we also want out of Brexit to stay with the EU, and the UK was like, "Fuck no,
Yeah,
serious,
Scott.
homie,
They were
fuck
fine
no."
with it. They were fine
Yeah,
with it.
they're like, we want to stay with the EU, but y'all can go off your own, and UK was like, "Are you?" Good luck with
We
that,
s-
homie. You're coming
we
with
still own
me.
you. We
We
still
still owe
own
you,
you.
bitch. And in
Um.
Ireland was local. Like, well, I believe Ireland and Scotland were both against the Brexit. I could be wrong, but I believe they both were not
Yeah.
on board.
Because it affects them
We're-
and the farmers and the smaller industries and all those
Yeah,
natural resource backcountry shit way from more
yeah.
than London and da da da. Right? Your
And
typical
I'm
the same
pretty
thing
sure,
that happens here.
the EU said to Ireland and Scotland, like, if you come back in, you can come back in. This is a we see the abusive relationship you're in.
Yeah.
It's weird, bro, but like but yeah, it's so jokes how
um.
like the only country in that or island, the UK is still holding on to their last morsel of independence or of like I guess like respect, not respect, but I don't know, relevance
Is what?
because the Queen is an important
Is it
thing.
England or what? What's the last island?
UK.
Oh, the UK. What? But the whole thing
Yeah,
is the UK. Oh, so you mean globally? You think globally the
globally.
Queen has fallen off?
Yeah, because like
What about the
Jamaica
British
and
Virgin
all those
Islands?
aren't they American? They're
Why
American,
would
right?
they be called the British Virgin Islands?
I don't know, bro. I aren't for some wait, no. America owns
No, it's a British
so
overseas territory.
okay, because America owns a series of islands too, so, somewhere in the Pacific.
Yeah, the
Of-
British captured it in 1672.
and they haven't let it go. It's an
Nope.
island. What's there for them?
Richard Branson's house. They need to make sure they hold on to it.
That makes sense. Oh,
Yeah,
that's what he
it's.
names his airline version
But so
airline.
fun fact as
Oh,
we're talking about politics, Scotland a Scotsman, a Scottish person, is actually the one who proposed democracy within Britain and convinced.
Cap,
If it
cap,
wasn't Elizabeth, it
cap,
was one of them.
cap, all
It
cap,
was. It
all
was.
cap.
Google
It
it.
was a Muslim guy named Abdul down the road.
I played an
Um,
Assassin's Creed game, and that's what it told me. But
is
it
that
was basically Scotsman. Scotsman rolled up, and he's like, "We've been having a lot of wars, and you keep wanting to rule all these islands. How about if like you have a House of Commons, and like you could still be the queen, but let's like, how about what if we can all just say what we want? At least, can we do this? And maybe if we want to go to war, like,
like you're so well, like you're like in a bad spot when other countries are saying, look, you can keep your monarchy because that's so near and dear to you. You will fucking riot for days if there's no a monarchy. But can we just live? Like
yeah.
just fucking live? It's like, and you know what's jokes? Uh, Monarchies actually do exist today. The UK isn't the only one.
Okay.
Spain has one. Nepal has one. There's like a few other small ones. The only difference between those ones and the UK one is that the UK one seems to
Oh.
have an influence in the politics in everyday life. In these other countries, it's like a traditional thing. They don't really
Yeah.
have any say in anything. They just, oh, we're the king of Spain, blah blah. That's it. Didn't really do anything. But with that being said, monarchy shouldn't exist in the 21st century. Like
There's
fucking
so many.
democracy.
I didn't know how many there was.
There's a lot of them, but like they don't have the same sort of like weight as the the royals do.
So, yeah, because it says right here. So this is King Charles III has oh my god, my Antigua and Barbuda, the Commonwealth of Australia, the Bahamas, Belize, Canada, Grenada, Jamaica, the Realm of New Zealand, the independent state of Papua New Guinea, the Federation of St. Kitts, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the Solomon Islands, Tuvalu, the UK, and the British Virgin Islands. So that's 17. They have 17 territories still.
Half of those territories are asking for the statehood to be removed and asking for reparations back. I know Jamaica and Barbados are one of them.
So, as we outline all that stuff, how many territories they have, with the colonial era behind us, Canada is literally a massive body of water apart and a completely separate culture and economy apart from Britain. Why would someone want to be beholden to another country that hasn't been relevant in about 50 years?
I guess status quo. They just want to keep up appearances to show that there's still a strong tie to the monarchy. Otherwise, they'll lose because older Canadians, I'm sure you having people in your family that are like,
Mm-hmm.
I love the Queen. So, like, if Canada sort of says F the Queen, they're like, oh, Justin Trudeau and his woke army are saying these bad things about the Queen, and we already don't respect him anymore. So we're gonna even lose more respect. I think it's just appearance. It's all about image. It's all about like keeping tradition, keeping the status quo. But we have more of a leeway to say we will want out of the Commonwealth, or we want out.
Like you're saying, we should have some sort of exit plan for us as a nation, or that we should be able to vote on it. You know what I mean?
Both.
Both?
Vote on it and then get an exit plan to get the F out. Because like, it's like it It's like you're an NBA player and your dad comes back into your life once you you make it in the NBA.
Yeah.
The UK is doing not well, but Canada is doing well now, and they're like, if we have some sort of connection to two strong countries, we will be still like a, serious stuff. And like on top of that, like the fact that like this country can't have a prime minister last longer than 2 years shows the seriousness of how the political system in like country is. Like Theresa
So
May.
Her Majesty, Miss Elizabeth, helped set up the Commonwealth itself.
I helped set up my dad's bed when we first moved in. Doesn't mean shit.
Hey, hey, the Queen. It's not propaganda. If you've watched The Royals on Netflix, I don't know if you've seen some of them, but they're quite witty,
I've seen
Raza.
enough.
Yeah, they've got some spunk. So I'm fairly certain if they're like that in TV, then that she could write this.
TV's real, 100%. Because Diana
110%.
still leave. Diana, you know what's so jokes? That show, The Crown. This wasn't even timed or anything. When they announced the Queen's death, the Crown social media page posted the next season a still image of Diana in her iconic black dress, and they're like, "What the fuck?" Throwing shade at the Queen. But then the show said we're pausing production out of respect for the Queen.
That's kind of
And
fair.
then
That's kind of
no, it's
fair.
not. No, it's
That
not.
one's fair. You're making a fictional story about the family. Let them grieve and be human at least. That's the one that they're human still.
Grieve who? Who
The
grieve?
family. There's a whole family there that they're literally alive that they're making a TV show about.
Oh, not you defending the monarchy. Let them grieve. Oh my god. Let
They're
them
still
grieve, Anna.
humans, bro. They're still they may be horrid, sinful humans, but a good
But
man,
they're
a
still humans.
Christ-loving brother, has compassion for other
There's
men.
pictures of them. I think the Queen's mom like going to a zoo full of Indian kids and then like treating them like animals. So I guess they're
Yeah,
grieve. Let me
touche.
grieve them. And there's one of
Touche.
Queen going this like doing a certain salute, which I can't say.
No, God,
Oh,
that's gross. No, so fun fact for the listeners. Yeah, Winston Churchill, our Lord and Savior, World War II. Google the Bengal famine. The Bengal
Bengali
famine.
famine. The Bengali famine.
Yeah,
Can I
have fun with that.
give? Can I just?
Yeah.
I'm gonna spoil it. So the Bengali famine is something that the British. I don't think the British people really sort of accept that it has happened under their Lord and Savior, as Bailey said, Sir Winston Churchill. Um, basically, it's basically what Rome did. They took all the wheat from the Bengali farmers and shipped them off to the British and Canadian soldiers fighting in World War II, and leaving none for the Bengali. It led to so many people dying of famine. It's considered one of the worst atrocities under our boy,
Yeah.
Sir Isaac Newton, Sir Winston Churchill. But it's okay though because he's the bulldog of the British Empire. He helped defeat the bad
No, and
guys.
Raza, it's okay because you know what happened after that famine? The British left, so they got their independence.
Yeah, and my family totally didn't suffer from that
No.
independence.
They left. They left. It's a good thing, Raza. The history, my high school history book told me it was a good thing.
The British gave India and Muslims independence. But what they didn't tell the Indians and Muslims is that they're leaving and that they're going to be telling them to be nice with each other. So they're like, "Oh, our hands are clean now. This is what is happening there is all their fault. It has nothing to do with us. Oh, their
Nothing to
tea,
do with me.
that's still ours. Yeah, that's still our tea. But yeah, it's also kind of jokes that my high school is named after Winston Churchill, and I could have done like a whole like slam poem about that stuff, but I didn't know this history till like I graduated from high school. I was like, yo, I should have been like, yo, F. Winston Churchill. He's a bad guy. My homies,
Horrible
a lot,
man.
but World War II homies will say he was a necessary evil.
Yeah.
It's like, that
He
doesn't
was drunk
make
the
it
whole
any
time.
better. Oh,
Drunk the whole
was he?
time. He didn't really.
That's
Yeah,
why his,
yeah.
his
He's like
speeches
notorious.
are off.
Yeah,
Like, I'm
yeah. He was always just hammered on whiskey, but it's also like it's another one of those. When you do the history stories, the man was probably fucking shell shocked. So no wonder you're an alcoholic, because you're just like going through PTSD and trying to run a country. So Jesus Christ, bro.
yeah, yeah. He led. I mean, I'm not gonna hype him up too much, but he did lead the country out of World War II. And one of my favorite game series with my least favorite entry, Assassin's Creed Syndicate. You meet Winston Churchill in one of the future, because Assassin's Creed Syndicate is the closest to our timeline. So you meet him when he's young, and they make him out to be such a noble dude. I'm just like, oh, you're gonna do some bad shit when you
Yeah,
grow
you're gonna
up.
starve a lot of people,
I'm gonna
bro.
start a lot of people, man. He called Indian people like
No, yeah,
savages. So just like,
yeah.
come on, man. Can we not have bad homies like Johnny
I
McDonald?
I knew a bit about it because then I went to Scotland as we're talking about British history, and I was reading about where they would take all of the fibers that they harvested to India, they would ship it to Scotland and make all these child laborers in Scotland,
Yeah.
then sew it into military clothing and tents. So it's like I was just reading about this
That's
history in Scotland, and the history is just brutally honest. It's like this horrible thing that killed a bunch of people back home and then killed a bunch of Scottish people just so that they could have enough tents to fight their wars.
and then same with the. I'm sure everybody's familiar with the Boston Tea Party. Um,
Yeah, but
so the
that's that
Boston Tea
buzzword.
it is a buzzword, but people don't understand who it actually hurt.
Yeah.
The Americans were throwing tea off of the ships, right? As like, oh, F the Queen or the royals and the taxes, without realizing the royals were like, oh, we're just gonna make the Indian people work 10 times harder now
Yeah.
because all they did was make India suffer, which is such an American thing to do. But
Yeah,
they made
exactly.
it
Now all these poor
suffer
people back home have to harvest more tea.
more because you guys have misdirected anger towards a different. They're like, oh, fuck the Queen, fuck his taxes, and a poor Indian child was like, oh, god damn it, now I got to work harder for the. It's I'm not even getting independence. It's
The
like
little
100 years from now.
little Scottish boy is hacking out the leukemia he's developing, saying, "I'm ready to go back, sir."
It's so bad. Like it's so interesting that like everybody, no matter what your skin tone is, has been afflicted by the British Empire. Um,
Um,
unless you're like British, even if you're British yourself, you're somehow like hurt by the
yeah,
oppressiveness.
yeah. Mommy's got to feed us, so we got to do what mommy needs. That's why the queen will help.
That's actually, yeah. I just realized that's your only that's the only like reason. Only good one too. Who else would lead the country? Not fucking the prime minister.
But so overall, before I close out this first section, I also think, in my opinion, we should definitely split off in some way. But I think there's a lot of old people that are way too attached, so we need to do that the modern version and say, all right, whatever, you're the figurehead, and we'll elect the governor general in a separate election and keep this in place.
It won't be a real one though. It'll be like something they have on TV, like American Idol. So it seems like there's a relevance there. They're like, okay, you old people here. Here's your made up election. We'll give you that. Blah blah blah. But in reality, it'll be a different system. Just to. That's so funny.
Well, so we'll have the governor general. We'll have the governor general, and then we'll have the TikToker at large, and the TikToker at large will be in charge of all media and propaganda internationally for our nation.
Right, and like old people at their old age homes will have like a meeting with the governor general, just so they know that it's a real person.
Yeah. And the TikToker at large will make some fire fucking reposts, duets.
Watch, it'll be like borderline racist too. Watch. Watch. They won't know it, but they'll be like,
we're just trying to keep it authentic to the queen. It's not going to be borderline. It's just undertones.
You're like, look at how all these Asian people live, and like, wait, what the fuck does that mean, homie? What the fuck does that mean?
No, it's always gotta be. It would be different. It's TikTok. You're not using what the kids would use. You gotta do POV. My first time at a sent that down. Like you gotta get the fucking beats down, buddy. If we're gonna be TikTok stars, you gotta know how to speak the lingo of the kids, pal.
You want us to be a TikTok star?
Hey, we gotta conform. We must become one of them, Raza.
We must become a 22-year-old.
Yeah. That's it, Raza.
We must.
That's you're based. No cap. No cap, fam. Straight up. 10 toes down, dog.
Turn up, fam. It's lit up here. I'm on the dizzy. Some bullshit they say. POV. Your mom kicked you out of the house because
you bought too many Nikes for $300.
Yeah, you spent $3,000 on V-Bucks for Fortnite, and you didn't. And you're 23 years old.
Because you were playing Rust too much with your friends, and your clan couldn't even top the ladder for your server. You dork.
Yeah, they're the dork here.
Okay, so onto our Reddit section. I don't know what it's titled. It's an advice section. Now it's an advice section.
It's cheated on. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's missing the critical part.
Was here because then she could go off on this queen, and then
okay. So
I guess
hopefully we'll get my mom's opinion and add it in. We'll do a little movie magic. No.
That's not movie magic. If you tell them, it's gonna happen.
It can be still. Woo. Okay.
Has not seen one episode of Chris Angel Mind Freak and has already fucking dropped the ball.
I, female, 28,
the Mind Freak,
cheated with up to 4 other dudes.
Nice.
Basically, I managed to get a bunch of circumstantial information that has my GF meeting up with these 4 dudes at various times in contexts that are pretty sketchy. No proof of actual cheating, but I'm not an idiot, and I think it's highly likely she cheated on me. I poked her about this a little bit, and she clammed up and shut down, which isn't a good sign. I have 4 names. 4 men to my name.
Fucking Gone Girl up in this.
One or all 4 might be the person they cheated on me with. In what manner can I contact these people so that they spill the beans about my partner? It's pretty risky to contact them, but there must be some way or some opening I can use that is innocuous enough to get them to respond, but pointed enough to get them to give me information. Any ideas? TLDR, my partner probably cheated. I have the names. How do I trick the people I think she did it into spilling the beans?
Okay, can I just say something? Is
Yes.
I I I think I have to this day I can't confirm if I have been cheated on 100% because there's I'm not 100% sure if I was or not. Um, but this guy, what I did was just like leave it. But this guy should, if he believes he's being cheated on, he has evidence kind of there leaning into that. I think you should just walk away from this because then why are you with a cheater? Like I understand like relationships are like there's a whole bunch of other dynamics, but like ultimately if you're going to be interrogating your partner every time you hang out, what's there's no relationship
I
there, right?
guess, but that's also like very
Yeah, I thought about it.
presumptuous. The way
Oh,
this
gee.
guy is writing, this guy's really writing like he's a top G as well, though. You know what I'm saying? Like he's writing like
Top
he's
G
coming.
Sigma stuff would be just drop it and then walk away from it all. That's top G
He's
shit.
writing
This
like
guy is just like alpha.
I have the names. I came
Yeah.
upon circumstantial information. He's using fancy words like innocuous. You're trying to feel high and
These
mighty,
hands
and
are
you're trying to
are
make
registered
yourself.
weapons.
I'm a high value male. I am
Yeah.
innocuous. You know what I mean?
Well,
It's sus.
yeah.
It's sus. So that's my only critique. Is like you could go about it like a healthier human and maybe just talk to someone or say like, "Yo, I think she's cheating." Talk to her friends. Talk to her ideally, but I'm not gonna say expect everyone to be top tier
Yeah.
relationship human. So like talk to
See,
people about it maybe then rather than let it fester about these names that you may have just drummed up.
yeah. That's yeah, like of course talking about it, but then like well, what's the limit, right? He seems to be like adamant about this. He wants to know these names. I'm just like, homie, the what do these names mean if you know that you're being cheated on, all right? So then how much time is he going to spend on looking for these dudes?
See,
Why doesn't he just walk? Because he's going to damage himself. He's gonna because then the next relationship he's gonna run into the partner may not be cheating and then he may exhibit the same behaviors and be like, oh, I feel like she's doing something, now I gotta hound down these dudes that she's talking to, or if there's any dude. So I think in my opinion, and you and my mom chirp me about this all the time, but like cutting off is like like the best thing you can do, especially if you have a 90% hunch and your hunch is actually like, okay, maybe there is something going on.
I guess, but you just don't have to cut immediately. I
No, but
feel
like
like,
after a while.
I guess you're right. I feel like after reading this, even, it sounds like the man's hasn't had many relationships in his life, even though he sounds
Could be.
like, I feel like I got over that stress about who is it? Who was it? I need the names. I want to know. I feel like that's some less mature anxieties, which is not a slight, but it's a concern you have when before you realize that it's not even worth fucking stressing about who the person is. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's like
Okay, so I just reworded
bother?
it. All right, all right, all
Why
right.
why bother, right? Like you already have the names, right? And you if you feel something, it may be immature. Granted, I it, people people cheating makes everybody act out in not the best manner, right? So they're going to be immature, I guess, regardless. Play school will go flying. Baby daddies come back in the picture. It gets all messy, but I think he's spending way too much time on the names rather than what he needs to do, right? And for his own well-being, I think just like yeah, as you said, talk to people and talk to her. And if his answer if answers aren't satisfactory, if they don't like line up with anything, then it's up to him to leave or stay, right?
Listen, Janie, I talked to Tone last week, and he told me you went out and got hoagies with Andy on Tuesday. Now, I think it's sus that you got hoagies on a Tuesday, because we all know it's 2 for 2
Our hoagie
hoagies
night.
on Thursdays.
Oh,
And that's
right.
when we go.
So
So you
again,
getting
could
hoagies
be
with another man?
she getting hoagies with another man. That's a sacred bond between the two partners.
Between partners, you share a
Yeah.
hoagie spot.
Yeah.
You're in it for life.
And if you say, "Oh," to this next guy, come on, man. How
At
dare
least don't
they?
get him the same Italian that you get every time. At least make the man get a different sandwich. Okay, get
Or
the
like, you know
calabrese
what?
or something.
All right, now Bailey's going all about a tangent. Now all of a sudden it's from cheating to like what sandwich should I get to after stream?
I wish,
Now
bro.
I
You
kind of
find me
want
an Italian deli?
I kind of want a roast beef now for some reason. Potatoes.
Potatoes?
I love potatoes. Dude, potatoes are fire.
Bro, I live off potatoes and
vegetable.
onions, so I ain't even mocking that shit. Like, my primary nutrients come from onions, I'm fairly certain.
I
Onions and
say
garlic.
like pierogies are like the only white people food that I will die on a hill and say it's good.
I digress. Is the monarchy a part of us now? Raza. The queen and
Really?
the queen and her brother husband, as Raza writes, and their family
Wow.
are a part of Canada, whether we like it or not. We have taken moves to get our independence, i.e., the Canadian Charter of Rights, but we still have a strong connection to the monarchy with our Governor General, as we've so complained. Are the royals baked firmly into the Caucasian Canadian psyche that it's that it's hard for them to move on because it's become as much a part of their identity of being Canadian? Or do they just not care overall? Queen or no queen, our life hasn't really changed. I.e., that's what my grandmother was sitting there saying. In that case, what does it mean as a country going forwards, since many other countries are asking to have the queen as head of state to be removed? Why can't we ask for the same thing? And why doesn't the Freedom Convoy or other people who claim to stand up for values that represent freedom fight for these things? In summary, what do you think could be an option moving forward to identify our relationship with the Queen and what to do? Good sir.
This is a tough one, and you and I were talking about that because like it's just like yeah, people like your grandmother probably don't care, right? They're like, oh, we have a queen, it is what it is, right? So I think that it's hard to do for people like us,
Mm-hmm.
um, because it's a part of our way of life. We have a huge connection to the queen for some obscure reason. I still don't get it, but uh, yeah, I think it's like we do in order for us to move on. I think the we have to like generationally educate older people, but like, yo, the queen isn't really that important to us. Like, why does it matter for the queen? Why don't we have
So,
Canadians, right wing Canadians are all about are about like being independent. So why can't we hammer in those points? Be like, oh, independence, no queen. There you go, right?
so this isn't to put you on the hot spot. It's just because I think it's an interesting question. When you're saying like generationally educate, like you want to talk to just the elderly people and get them to learn like the queen isn't so valuable. How do you do that? How are you gonna? That's like
Yeah.
you're dancing the line of propaganda once you start mandating like, oh, now we need to do anti-queen messaging.
I mean, not really
It's
anti-queen, more like talk about why Canada is great without the queen, right? You're more focusing on Canada. Talk about the things that make Canada great, and you can remove the queen from that context without being like, oh, being anti-queen, you're just being pro-Canada. You know what I mean? You can talk about like how we care about,
I guess.
I mean, we don't really care about our older people, but like how we care about our older citizens and like how the tax dollars go towards that. But like again, it's hard to do because it's like I think the countries that are actually actively moving on from, like, who actually want out of the
Hmm.
Commonwealth, still have that, still, like, okay, I think, okay, yeah, or okay, I just had it, because places like Trinidad and Tobago and Barbados, their relationship with the royal family wasn't that good, right? I'm
Hmm.
pretty sure plantations were there from the during the 1800s. First it was the Spanish Empire, and then it was the British Empire, right? But for
Hmm.
Canada, Canada doesn't really have the same sort of treatment that these other people, like the people from Jamaica, got, because they're all colonists, pioneers that came here, right?
Hmm.
Granted, what they did to the native people, that's horrific. So I think natives, First Nations people, actually have more of a of a of a ground to stand on, to be like, okay, we don't want this anymore, because they firsthand have experienced that relationship, and it's a bad one, right?
Which
But
I'm all
like the
for. I'm 110% behind, but we already know that Canada ain't going to listen to them. They already
Yeah,
don't listen to
I know.
them.
It's the perfect world, but like, uh, but the Jamaican and people from the islands, all they know is the suffering that the the British Empire has brought. So asking for independence is such an easy thing. It's like, because it's still
Hmm.
like that sort of mindset is still fresh in their head, or their ancestors that recent have witnessed some hardship.
Yeah.
That's the big example. My people, but like, my people, for example, we are like pretty much like Pakistani Indian people are like pretty much gung ho anti-British because of what they have done. So it's easy for us to ask for independence from our governing bodies, rather
Yeah.
than rather than, like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
So that's like, I think genuinely my hot take slash like analysis of the situation is that's why I feel that they are pushing the PR around the passing of this queen specifically because they are aware that the popularity is draining and
Yeah.
that Monsieur Charles will not be able to drum up the same style of support
Yeah.
because Elizabeth helped bring the country together through multiple crises, as I just read, helped create the Commonwealth. This
Yeah.
Charles guy is like Pope Francis and just inheriting a fucking mess. So
Yeah. So it's just
I
like,
think they're
yeah, people.
trying to put a goodwill face out front right now so that
Mhm. But
people don't start asking why are you here.
yeah, but people, yeah, and people start asking that in the bigger countries like Canada. It's like, uh then it'll be more serious, because, like, oh, one of our biggest allies in the country wants out. But like, places like, yeah, like the island, don't really care about that legacy, don't really care about all that. That's why when the queen was alive, they were asking still, because it's just like, what good is, even if they have a new guy there, what good is that going to bring them? It is going to make things like worse, and it's going to make these countries act like they need to depend on the monarchy when they don't.
Yeah. Overall, we're in a tricky scenario because I find we're in a
Canada, you
crossroads.
mean?
Yeah,
Canada, you mean? Yeah. Okay.
yeah, and a lot of the other Commonwealth nations, as we're saying, this distaste
Sure.
is
Like
growing.
Australia wants. Yes, Australia is another one, right?
As far as I'm aware, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I imagine
Australia.
they have even more. They have just the same troubled history. You're a literal prison island, and
Yeah, but
like,
I guess, yeah, which is, I don't know. I'm not too familiar with the relationship between Britain and Australia post that. but I know they're like closer to the monarchy because of their relationship, I guess, over time.
Yeah, because they're because it's Australia. They was much more dependent on trade through the Pacific and South
Yeah,
Asia because they couldn't
yeah.
produce as many supplies at first. So even though it was a prison island, they were still like mad dependent on the Queen and the Empire to bring all the commodities that they needed.
So like any colony that had a good relationship with the monarchy will have a harder time justifying leaving the Commonwealth, right? Ultimately,
Hmm.
that's why Canada will be so easy. I mean, so hard to move on from because it's embedded in us. It's the monarchy is a part of our whole like
Yeah.
system.
Go.
I'm glad I'm from a country and from peoples that have actually fought for their independence and with a bunch of sacrifice, one, but hardship doesn't. I mean, independence doesn't come without sacrifice. But like the Canadian people like need to realize that like, oh, you don't really need this stuff. Like you don't like your allegiance with a made up thing isn't it doesn't hold any weight anymore, right? Like you are if this was the 1800s, sure, 17 1800s or even prior to that, sure, but like nowadays the world has moved on as much as I
Hmm.
think it is, but in reality it's just still, oh, we have Canada, we have Australia, we have all these other countries that still are hyped about. Even the Europe EU isn't super fond of fucking
Yeah,
the
because it just adds another
UK.
step and complicates the process overall. Like you're saying, it's just an outdated model that's still influencing our decision making to this day.
Which is, and it's making things harder, right? Because
But
the monarchy doesn't want to evolve,
well,
and
and
with
our
Meghan Markle
society,
is the
fam,
biggest thing.
we're not even looking at our own colonial history. How are we going
I
to
know,
recognize that the very foundation of it is wrong? It's like how
I
Americans won't
know.
look at what they did with their trade to subjugate an entire population of people. We're not going to recognize that we took
First of
part in the
all,
colonialism.
America's independent, so that I mean that cancels out everything else they've done. I'm kidding.
No,
I'm kidding.
Raza,
No, I'm
the key
kidding.
word America is exceptional, Raza. America is exceptional.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a tricky one because I don't know. Like I was saying, I have family members who are so British that they're crying. They felt like they had an attachment to her, like she was a celebrity to them. And
Mhm.
these people lived through the fucking war, so they were like, it's kind of they have a different perspective on it. And I'm trying to be patient, but it's definitely a weird case to navigate because we live in an era where we're idolizing people all the time online. So surprise, surprise, that this was just the preliminary version of that, right?
Mhm. Um, yeah. I don't know. It's just super weird how like we're holding on to something that doesn't really have any any tangible value now it's like it's just it's a little, as my friend said, it's like she's ahead, it's like a status. It doesn't really have any weight outside of the UK, right? But
Yeah.
for some reason we have all of these instruments there that make it seem like it is like a like an important thing. Again, Governor General, stuff like that. So I I I just gotta look at it that way. Because like coming from a person like who has like family members who've been implicated or who've been affected by this, it's just like it's kind of weird how one side of the world uh is 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 changing so vastly, so differently, and so quickly towards this, but then this side of the world, which is supposed to be, you know, advanced, supposed to be like highly educated, highly sophisticated, is still stuck with this old school mindset. that they
Yeah.
can't
Well, this
move
is
on.
we're in some sort of cycle where people, no matter the side of the political spectrum you're on, are afraid to dream of alternative perspectives on what already exists.
Hmm.
And I think the monarchies are caught up in that because it's
Yeah,
been something that's always there. So
yeah,
it's hard to remove because bureaucracy and how democracy functions is inherently adverse to change.
I guess. Yeah, I guess. Uh, like, are you saying the monarchy is in the way of of
So
change, or?
say like a democratic system like ours, which is also then tethered in with the monarchy, it has
Mhm,
become successful because say you look
mhm,
at the American government or our
mhm,
Charter and Rights and Freedoms, and we live
mhm,
by that shit. So once it's
mhm.
set in stone, it's set in stone, and that's how that governing body functions on an economic and policy making basis. So when you start that shit off with the royalty injected main vein right into the spinal column of that shit,
Yeah.
since the literal institution thrives on not removing its pillars, then
Mhm.
removing any sort of the hint of the monarchy from it is going to inherently be one of the hardest things to do because it was made
Yeah.
with it built in.
It's embedded already
Yeah.
in a system. So yeah, like our like the Canadian Federation was created already with the British into like in it already. So Canada theoretically hasn't lived in a world that's uh, been without the British, right? So I, and I think we don't want to change it because we don't know the societal impact of it, because as you said, many people are still attached to the queen, and how will they feel if their own country has said no more queen,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like these people, a large swath of Canadians, older Canadians, still like like look up to the monarchy, right? But and then how do
Mm-hmm.
you explain that to them? Be like, Canada is no longer a part of that anymore. You can look up to them, but don't expect us to be as open to them as you are, right? How do you explain that to them? You can't, which is
Yeah.
the other thing too. So like, either educate them, or like it's just, or just wait for time to have happen. But it's just, it's a very tricky road, and Canada, I, I don't know if Canada is ever gonna move out of that, but it's just, it's a it's a very it's a very archaic way about how Canada is doing it all, because as much as we like to say we're independent, we don't really show that outside of, having our own elections and our own policies, I guess. But like, the Queen still kind of has a say in, like, or had a
Yeah.
say in, like, what
I think
we
it will
did.
go back to that defense I was providing to start off the show, how I was presenting it, how the Governor General and having the monarchy injected to our politics could be seen as a check and balance. I think that is
Yeah.
what's going to be leaned into heavily by people who don't want to get rid of it. They're going to see it as a positive to prevent absolute control of our democracy. But
Yeah.
man, we can barely make change as it is. If this goes through quickly, I would my mind I would be shocked. I'd
Yeah.
be shocked.
Again, anything that is embedded in our system. Again, the monarchy and all this stuff was brought into the subcontinent of India. It was all brought there. It's not natural for them. I mean, they had Raj and like all that stuff, but like for a foreign one to come in, it was super unnatural. So like, it was easy for them to stand up, like, and somewhat unite against the British. It's easier to do it for them, but for Canada, since the British didn't give them a reason to, they were like, oh, we're getting all of this free money, free infrastructure, all of their tax dollars are coming here to make us live comfortable. So why do we need to? The Queen is providing for us. Why do we need to let go of that? And then years later, I guess that's the same excuse, except not really.
I guess. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
Because there's like America and Canada were created at the hands of the monarchy, right? I believe so.
Technically, I guess, yeah, if you want to say
Well,
that.
like a bunch of monarchies, a bunch of them, but then
Yeah.
the one who wrapped it up was the British. But all these other civilizations where the British colonized were already there. So like, and then they experienced the same type of like, well, not the same type of stuff that North Americans want to face, but like the same type of stuff like the vast majority of the colonies face. So like, when you have a system that's already there and you have a foreign entity come in and overtake that system for years and years and years, the oppression seems to get placed in their heads a lot quicker. And they're like, okay, we have to start now going back at it. Where pioneers, the patriots came in, and the British way of life was the initial one. And then it stayed the same for like until the Independence War or the American Revolution. For us, indefinite. So I don't. It's like two different cultures reacting differently, ultimately, and one being brought up with it and one having it forced on them. As you said, the Queen would oversee the religious laws and whatnot. So
I guess you're right. So
going to like the Middle East, and the Queen says, "Okay, now you're going to be doing Jesus stuff now." And they're like, "What? No, we have our own shit going here."
So the trick is to like deinstitutionalize all the underlying little bullshit that reinforces the the monarchy's influence in our society.
Yes, you're right, but institutionalizing only works in places where it was institutionalized, not where it was brought up from the ground up, right? Like the British created a system in Canada as they created the same system elsewhere in the world, right? In Canada, it was ground zero. They could Plato love it, but here in India, they just said this is it now. So it's easier to do it in India than it is in Canada because Canadians think that's because it started out. Our system is a British system. So if we deinstitutionalize the British system, we're that word. We're doing that to the Canadian system. So we need to start from square one all over again. You know what I mean? Since it's a part of from day one, the British system is like that.
Well, yes, ideally, my brother, let's start a revolution.
Yeah.
I'm with you, though, honestly. Ideally, that's the...
Yeah.
You gotta restart the whole building blocks, because you're right, because otherwise it will fester, and that will always somehow have the lingering remnants, even down to the media, man. Like, think about, even if we were to say tomorrow, no more monarchy. You think, yeah?
I think we've just come up to the solution. We literally have to tear down Canada and then go back to day one. And then do a Control-Alt-Delete in Canada. and then start from there. Build.
I would like that. Open up the
from-
task manager and select the right
Yeah.
processes.
I think that's the 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 best way to do things, because again, we look our Canadian way of life is a British way of life. When we live in Canada, of Great Britain, at least Americans actually have their own identity. You know what I mean? Ours is the British identity, and
Yeah.
we have to like detach ourselves from that first, and then we can become our truest mans.
Yeah. That's a tricky one to navigate. Hey, shout out. Thank you for the follow.
Hey.
Tata Bean. I think one of the hardest parts to navigate is what you're identifying is that relationship and how to split it apart. Would you be able to convince everyone to go in control alt delete mode though on society? Like that's a tricky scenario. You gotta navigate the left right paradigm in that case, and you already know that ain't common.
There's so many roadblocks that the monarchy has put in Canada. So many that we can't like do these things what we're talking about. Like, how do we educate them? How do we tell people like, oh, like what you're saying? How do we do that? Right? You can't, or it's hard to do unless you like again control all delete it all and say fuck it.
No, I feel you. I
Ultimately,
think
that's it. Control Alt Delete, go back to 0, and then at that, because you have to like it's it's like a DNA thing, right? Like you got to go back to the molecule level and then separate the two.
you're right. No, I'm with you there at the very basis.
Here, by the way.
I think you're correct. It's just the practicality of it that's I'm always caught up on, right? Then you have to convince everyone to sit there and actually critically not just evaluate themselves but their approach to politics. Right?
yeah. Just just take the Men in Black thing and just like do a memory wipe on all of us and bam, easy way. But again, perfect world. That's what
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It sucks because like Canada can do so much if we do this one thing. This one very simple thing.
This one simple thing, just
It does sound
restart your
simple.
entire civilization, one baby little step and it'll fix all your problems. Just wipe everything off your table right now.
Clean slate. Let's do it that way. Get
Okay.
Alberta will be pissed, but other than that, it'll be clean slate.
On the last bit of our show, we're showing the tweet of the week, which is for our recorded podcast, which goes up on Spotify, and then we hang out and chat after, where it's more like a regular Twitch stream. So if you're tuning in live, just like because we got rated, shout out Ghost Boy Ghoul, put this in the recorded. Then just be patient. You'll be able to bug us, call us idiots. All right. So Raza pulled out the tweet of the week. I think he's going a little bit more tame because this guy got banned. He may have gotten in trouble. Definitely got in trouble. So he gave me one of his more calmer tweets this week, which I was surprised by. It is now on screen. It says, culinary school students be like, bruh, I got spaghetti due at midnight.
That's not funny. That's jokes, man. I always kind of thought about how culinary kids do their tests. Do this or do projects like they need a soup done by like 5 p.m. and hand it in to the teacher.
And Afro adds to the quality. Also, Sensei, you are the one who's allowed to break the walls and fabric of reality. Everyone must know about and support the Sensei. But you are correct. What they do is it's exams, bro. They you go in and you gotta cook a dish. They do some MasterChef shit. You either gotta MasterChef it up, or they do like a catering service. So you gotta pump out like 50 of one thing, and they rate you on that.
Oh, that seems like a thing that I would not want to do. I would consume the food, but I wouldn't want to be like, because I've seen kitchen nightmares, and that's not how I want to do my exam. Like, stop! I'm
Yeah.
not a donkey. Just stop yelling at me, okay? I'm not an idiot sandwich, right, man?
I'm more of a Restaurant Impossible kind of man, you know? I like them big and
Who's
bulky and
that?
bald when they're yelling at me. He's the British guy. He's the British one. Restaurant Impossible. He has a really he's pompous. He's a dingus. What's his name? Robert Irvine. Robert Irvine. Okay, whatever. We're getting distracted by the Food Network. Kids, Google that on your own time. What up, Inf? We're about to close out the main podcast.
Oh, this guy?
Yeah.
You can kick him. Oh, he's jacked. Holy shit.
Okay, kids, I'm just dropping the links in the chat right quick before I close out the show. We love y'all, appreciate y'all. Just going through right now,
Does he beat up his chefs if he's mad at them? Because he's pumped.
Oh, yeah.
He's yoked.
He's yoked, bro. And he's a good chef. He's a good cook. He's OG. Chef? He's before Gordon Ramsay got famous, dog. He's Food Channel original, fam. He's coming back. He's got a new show. My mom won't watch him because he's too rude.
Do you watch the show that... I forget the guy's name, but he made Gordon Ramsay cry.
Mark Ewan.
Sure.
Anthony Bourdain.
Sure. Anthony Bourdain wasn't a fucking... Oh, yeah, he was a chef.
Yeah, he was a chef. Don't disrespect the Bourdain.
Did you see the video of him when the Queen died? Somebody posted like, oh, during a show, and they're like, cheers to the Queen, and he just looks, he's like, I'm not doing that. He actually outright says like, we've lost. I used to watch a show on CNN, bro, and with what's it, his or am I still talking? Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, closing it out. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. We're sorry that Wine Mom wasn't here to join us. We love and appreciate her, but unfortunately, Wine Mom has to work so that we can keep the lights on here, and that's just what moms do for their kids. But we also help you. Yeah, bring home pizza. And you know what? That's why we hate the Queen. Because when did the Queen bring you pizza? Never, kid. Never.
No.
But
you know who brought you
you know
pizza?
what? Marching into Madness. Damn it. We were not in sync that time. That was kind of funny. But so, if you want to follow us, we're on Instagram. Now we're also on the TikToks all the time. You can also catch us on the Twitch, as you know, and that's about it. When you're listening to this on the Spotifys, if you tune in live as we record it on Twitch at Mondays at 6 p.m., you can hang out with us after, and you can join Afro and the denizens of the internet as we complain about things online. Otherwise, if you tune in live, we appreciate you even more because we all know how fire it is to be in the chat. Otherwise, thank you for putting up with us. Thank you for listening to our ramblings. GG's in the chat. Peace, boys. Later, Afro. Good night, everybody. I'm seeing everyone chatting. We're going to put on the outro, and we're going to catch up with you. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you again for watching us badly talk about these topics.
You can follow us on Twitch, Marching Into Madness, all one word, no space. On the gram, marching_into_madness, and on Patreon at patreon.com/marchingintomadness. And again, on Le Discord at Marching Into Madness.
Join us, and Bailey will pay you 10 whole Canadian dollars.
You can follow Whitey over at gnarly_media on the Insta. You must definitely follow the life of our whole podcast, Wine Mom, at X Wine Mom X, because the year's 2002, and we still have the X in our names. And me, your favorite brown boy, at _r.r_malik_.
Thank you for the third time. We love you. Drink some milk and be healthy.
Remember, kids, say no to school and yes to
It's like such bad advice. It's like, here we put this well-formulated podcast together with good insight on facts and truth and political points and social issues. Don't go to school, dude.
Oh god.
Bailey listens to
Motherfucker
me.
shouldn't be near school after saying that.
It's like Bailey listens to me say the sentence and he goes, maybe I should say my sentence now.